Got a ball glove video for everybody today. I wanted to talk about specific mods for a baseball glove converting into a softball glove. Some of the things that you can watch out for, some of the things that improve flexibility, break points, certain pocket formations, how to spot some things as far as the back of the glove compared to a fastback and an open back. A lot of different tips and tricks and things that I've done over many years of doing this, nearly 20 years. Most of what I really cut my teeth on when I got really good at this was in the early 2000s, between 2004 and probably 2007, 2008 is where most of this came from. So I'm going to ramble on and give a whole bunch of glove nerd stuff, but hopefully some people get some education out of it and they understand what I'm talking about, and might give people that are getting into this a few tips to watch out for. So this particular glove is from 2005. It's when Rawlings was, in my opinion, making some of the best gloves in a long time. They were making really nice gloves back through the 80s and 90s in their Heart of the Hide series. They fell off the map a little bit, kind of had some issues with the gloves they were producing. When they got to 2004, 2005, they made some improvements until about 2010, 2011, things fell off, and they've never been the same since. So this particular glove, I think, is one of the best patterns and some of the best leathers they used. This glove has seen countless games, a lot of abuse, but it's held up very well, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So one of the things that I think people have a hard time admitting to is that they don't admit failure. They don't admit some of the mistakes that they made along the way. And I'm not one that tends to do that. I try to learn from my mistakes and voice what the mistakes that I made and how I improved them. So we'll kind of go through this glove top to bottom and talk about those things. So first, traditional lacing on a Rawlings is going to be a spiral through the top of the pocket instead of an X pattern like you see here. It'll be a continuous lace starting in the thumb. It'll move across the top of the pocket and through the fingers. The traditional way that fingers were laced like this, I'll use another glove here to show it, but traditional lacing through the fingers looks like this. In comparison to this glove, where it has the lacing here, which is very similar, but it also has lacing on the back, which is very different than what you would see here. The reason this type of finger lacing on this glove is important is you don't want movement or flexibility in the fingers this direction. And this is important on a softball glove. On a baseball glove, it's a little bit different. It's not as important. In my opinion, it is, but for a baseball player, it's not as big of a deal because the size of the pocket that you're dealing with is very different in baseball than it is with softball. So you want these fingers, especially through the pinky and the ring finger, to be very stable and very solid, and you don't want any migration through here. You have usually a space right here that forms with a softball glove because you're trying to get that pocket a little bit bigger. If you don't lace it this way and do a couple other tips that I'll show you here in a minute, you get a migration of this section right here where you've loosened this up and created part of the break point that migrates into these other fingers and loosens up. So one of the things that I've done in addition to this type of lacing, which is not uncommon. There's a lot of glove manufacturers that still do this lacing, Wilson being one of them, several others. But what I've done is I've added lock points to where that section right here will never change. It'll always stay the same. It will never migrate into the other part of the fingers. With those lock points, it also has a no-fail portion of it where if any of these laces fail, or if this lace fails in any 3 points where it's laced through here, this lock point and this no-fail will allow the glove to remain functional until that can be repaired. When I first started doing this, I didn't realize that this flexibility was a big problem in softball, and I didn't realize that this migration of the fingers becoming loose through here, as soon as you loosen this up and try to create your pocket, make it a little bit bigger, I didn't realize that. So I always laced traditionally like this until I found that out and was able to introduce this type of lacing with that no fail and the lock points. Back to the top of the pocket, the spiral lacing is really not a bad lacing. I actually like it. I tend to prefer cross pattern lacing. I think you get a lot more stability in a softball glove. The other reason I like this instead of one continuous lace through here is that you do get 3 laces through the top of the pocket, which I like because you're going back and forth with this specific type of lacing, which again also promotes the glove not being able to fail. If any one of these were to break, the glove would remain functional until you're able to repair that section of the glove. The reason I tend to go with the X pattern versus the spiral, I think you have more stability while remaining or having flexibility with that stability at the top of the pocket. It's preference. It doesn't mean it's better. It's just something that I prefer and what I have noticed. So that's what I use on a softball glove. Through the pocket, you're going to need more space for the ball to fit in the pocket, obviously, because you're dealing with a 12-inch ball. So what a lot of people do is they stretch out this section of the glove to create a bigger pocket. So you've got some gaps right through here and here, obviously through the top of the pocket. That's fine. The only problem is that you expose these laces on the sides, and depending on the climate that you're in and the dirt and crushed brick or whatever else you're playing on or with, it will expose these laces more and create a lot of damage if you're not keeping up on keeping moisture in these laces. So it's great to form a pocket, but it does tend to have issues with those laces breaking more often because they're exposed more. So again, learning from that, I did create a very simple, it's not rocket science, a no-fail pocket where a lace will start here, weave its way through the center of the pocket, and end over here, where if any one of these laces were to fail through the center of the pocket, the glove would remain usable until you could repair those areas. At the bottom of the pocket, this is just a separate area that added some length. I always liked longer laces on a glove. It serves no functionality. It's just something I've always liked. No changes through here. Everything is pretty standard coming from this continuous lace through the pocket. Through the heel, no changes. It's a traditional heel. No modifications or changes here. One thing that I will stress is if you do relace a glove, you do a different color, and you lace through the palm, is you want to do what's called skiving. By skiving, I mean you're going to take and thin out this lace, probably make it about half the thickness that it originally was, so that through the palm and through the inside of here, I know it's kind of tough to see because it's dark, but you don't want this to be rough or be poking into your hand, so you need to skive this lace or thin the lace in order to do that. Another area you'd want to do skiving is if it's a fastback and you have a finger hole, you want these laces very thin, so you'd want to skive this as well. This, like I mentioned, is a fastback, and being a fastback, you get very different breakpoints from that versus a open back. An open back glove is going to be longer through this section of the glove because you've got binding and all the other things that need to go into making a open back glove. I prefer fastbacks because it's shorter through here and your flex points and your break points are much different, and I think cater more towards softball than an open back does. That's opinion. It's based on fact as far as the difference between a fastback and an open back, but my opinion is a fastback is more functional with softball because of the break points that I'll show you here next. So by break points, what I mean is you have specific points on a glove that you want to break at in a specific area to keep that pocket and keep that functional with the normal use or normal way that the human hand functions. What a lot of people do is they like a traditional way of putting their hand in the glove. They're going to put one finger in each finger stall and then the thumb. Some people will put their finger out, or they'll keep their finger in the glove. That's been a long time way that people have done that. I tend to steer people away from that. I think that your hand functions naturally very different than what a glove is going to force your hand to do. So I definitely promote the having two fingers in the pinky, one in shifting over, having one in your middle finger in the ring finger and your index finger in the middle finger, and no finger inside this one. The reason why is your hand is built to close with more common and more natural feel fingers to thumb to ring finger and pinky finger. You get a lot more strength. It's a lot more natural to close this way. If you're trying to close this way, you don't get as much strength, and it's not as natural for your hand to close around something that is going to fit up in this area. If you're trying to catch something, you're trying to catch something like this, that direction. So your finger and your ring finger and your pinky are going this way, and your natural way to catch something, your thumb is going the other way. But in a glove, you're in a glove, so it's very different. It's a very different feel. So what ends up happening is your thumb can go that direction, but not as extreme as this way. When you're trying to catch something like this, your thumb can go a direction that the glove won't allow. So what you're trying to do is minimize how different your hand is flexing, or how I'm kind of rambling here, but you're trying to get as close to this feel as possible in a glove, where a glove won't allow you to do that. So if you're closing like this with all your fingers in every stall and then your thumb, you're not going to be able to accomplish this as easy as shifting over and having two in the pinky and shifting over entirely in the finger stalls and in the thumb. So with that out of the way, a lot of that is natural mechanics, but it's also opinion. There's a lot of people that absolutely hate putting their hand in the glove this way, and I can respect and understand that. I don't If it's not comfortable to you, then don't do it. I recommend it because I think it is more natural. With that, the break points that come from that are going to be right through here, through the glove, right here. You're going to have this section where as the glove closes, you're going to need flexibility so that it can close that way. And then you'll need flexibility through the top of the pocket. So break point would be here, break point here, break point here. What you don't want to do, in my opinion again, depending on how you like to have your hand in the glove, you don't want to create a U. If you create a U, you're not keeping this area of the glove flat. You're not allowing the glove to close naturally on the break point that you're trying to form. If you're closing as a U, you're sharing this area right here with this area of the heel. You don't want this one big giant break point. You want one specific break point for that glove to break at. One of the mistakes that I made is through many years I had my hand in the glove traditionally. I made the same mistake, in my opinion. And if you notice on this particular glove, because originally when I started learning these things and understanding these things, by having that break point in the wrong place, it actually started to form the palm of this glove to not be able to stay flat, because what's happening is you're taking this glove and you're closing it this way, so it will form this area in the palm. These two layers of leather will separate, and when they separate, you'll get this bump through the center of the palm, which you don't want. You want this as flat as possible, especially for softball. You're trying to maximize the area that you have to catch a much bigger ball. So by creating a U, you're not only creating the wrong break point, but you're separating this area of the glove, which ultimately affects performance and your pocket size. The other thing that happens by having your glove in, or hand in the glove, the quote-unquote traditional way, is you tend, because your hand is trying to use certain areas of the glove to pull the glove together, your hand is having to work harder. So what ends up happening is, it's kind of tough to see on camera here, but your fingers are going to pull, if you can see that right here, your fingers are going to pull this leather in and create a problem for this section of the pocket, because now you're making this area of the pocket basically a wave through here where your fingers are pulling that leather in. You don't want to do that if you can avoid it. By shifting over, you minimize that a lot, and a lot of times you eliminate it completely, because you're not pulling from that area of the glove anymore. Everything is closing right here on this break point with those two fingers trying to get to that thumb, like I explained before. So you don't want any of this, which you can clearly see that was happening, and you can clearly see that it has created a palm that is not flat anymore. This is a glove, personally, to me, that I love. I've had for years and I love it, but if I had to do it all over again, you would never see this through the palm, or any of these stretch marks, or any of those things that are going on. The other thing that you want to do is you want to minimize, through the thumb area here, you want to minimize how much force is needed on this thumb area to close the glove. And by switching your hand over and shifting over, like I explained before, it minimizes how much your thumb has to work. You want you want to be able to use your thumb to close the glove, but not as much. What ends up happening is, if you're creating a U like this, like we talked about before, you're more than likely going to have to use more of your thumb to close the glove, even if it's broken in. And by doing that, it creates a hitch through the thumb, right through here. Because you're pulling this thumb in more, you're going to stretch out this section of the glove, and you're going to create a hitch right here where it again is closing off this pocket. You want as big and as wide as possible getting that much larger ball, if I can talk, much larger ball into the pocket. You do not want this hitch through here. So the more you create a U, and the more you create a break point that is not in the right place, you create this hitch that you don't want right through here. Another thing that you can do to get your hand further into the glove and create that that break point that we're talking about is right here. This lace usually has a lace that runs through here into the other side. Right here, that lace would run through here into the other side and then continue to the other side over here. What you want to do is you want to relace this in a way where that lace does not go through the glove to the other side. You want to weave it in a way where it looks like it's laced that way, but it's really not. There is, if you put your fingers inside this glove, you can actually feel the hole right here where that has added another 1/2 inch to a 3/4 inch in length of that pinky to get your hand in the proper place to close and find this specific break point, because you want that break point to be right up here and out of the way from the heel and through the finger. You want it to be right there. You want that break point to be perfectly in the center, right through here. So by getting your hand up a little bit further, if you have larger hands or longer fingers, that allows you to get to that break point like you want to be at. So that is again a long, fairly long video, kind of rambling on, but it also, like I said, hopefully gives some education and some ideas when converting a baseball glove into a softball glove, and being successful with it. I do understand that a lot of what I say is opinion. I do also understand that a glove is a very emotional thing. When you buy a glove or you get attached to a glove, there's an emotional attachment to it, which in turn affects the physical way that you use that glove. So it does come down to whatever you like. I get that, and it does come down to whatever works. But there are ways to position yourself with a glove that is more functional, is more natural, and creates an overall better experience to go with that emotion. Because if you're going to spend $200-300, maybe more, on a glove, you want to make sure you're maximizing those things. So hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully more to come on gloves and specific things to talk about. And until next time.